I'm gonna lay back a little bit. I'm sitting here on my couch because I changed location, and I was thinking about Professor Anton, and the question he asked was, as a Christian, could you forgive God if you found out that there was no afterlife? Well, first of all, I don't know if there is an afterlife, and personally, I actually don't care. I'm gonna be honest. I really don't live my life as if there was something after this. I do believe in God, and I do consider myself Christian. It's the first time I ever say Christian, you know. But I don't go to church, and I don't belong to any particular church or anything like that. I said something earlier, and I actually did say it on a sort of rehearsal video, so to speak. But it was classic. I actually wanted to put it up there, but I'm always saying so many other things. I kind of get off the topic. But one of the things I did a long time ago, I sort of had this moment where I was going through the same thing that so many people go through. Which religion is right and what's the right way? When I was growing up, I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. And all this stuff that they talked about, which religion is the right one and which one is the right one. The thing is that you didn't know which one was. Nobody could tell you. And the thing is that I made an agreement with God. It's my own little personal contract agreement where I basically said to God that I'm going to live my life the way I want to live it and worship the way I want to worship and show my devotion the way I want to do it. And in other words, as I said on that thing, and it was funny the way I said it. I wish I could keep that and edit it in here. But the way I said it is I avoided the middleman because I consider the church to be the middleman. They're like negotiators for God. I said, no, I don't need a negotiator. I'm gonna go straight directly to God and talk with him and cut my own deal. I'm gonna cut my own deal with God, and that's what I did. But the point of that is, what the real point I want to get to is getting back to the professor's question. Can you forgive God if there is no afterlife? Well, it's a contract agreement. You really have to look at it that way. Religion is a contract agreement. Because in that contract agreement, we see God as having certain obligations. And that's the whole reason why we would even have to forgive God, is because He agreed to something. He promised to give us something in exchange for something else. And that exchange would be that we live the righteous life. We live the life that we're supposed to live. And in exchange for that, the life that we're supposed to live according to what He wants, was pleasing to God. We have to do things to please God. If we do that, God will give us a life that's better than this one, a world that's better than the one we currently live in. That's the contract. And if God doesn't fulfill that contract, we have the power to punish God. Our punishment of God is withholding forgiveness. If we blame God for our lives, blame God for our miseries, and not forgive Him, that's our punishment for Him. That's how we can enforce the contract. Like we can have God trembling in His shoes, like, oh my God, oh, or oh my me, because He would have to say me. I doubt God would say, oh my God. He would say, oh my me. But anyway, the point being is that it's like a contract agreement. That's what it would have to be in order for us to even think about, forgiveness or non-forgiveness. That's our way of enforcing. Like if I make an agreement with someone, sign a contract for some property. Let's say I want to buy a car. So I sign the agreement. The car is everything is spelled out. Everything the car is supposed to have. And I'm going to give a certain amount of money. Now, if I give these people the money and I get the car, but then I find it doesn't have all the things that were in the contract, I can go back and say, what about all these things? This wasn't fulfilled. And if they say, well, we're not going to give it to you, then I can take them to court. I have a method of making them live up to their agreement. But if God doesn't live up to an agreement that we have with Him, then what can we do? If we do all our stuff, if we do everything we're supposed to do, and He doesn't do His part, like provide us with that afterlife that we've been looking forward to, what can we do? Can we take God to court? No. Can we go and call the police and have God arrested? No. What we can do is we can withhold forgiveness. We're not going to forgive him. And that's the punishment. Now, I'm thinking about that. And I thought about something else. Because I actually wrote this out. I was thinking about it earlier today. And so I was writing about it. I had my laptop and I was writing it out. And I was thinking about the fact that God doesn't really owe us anything. I mean, it's not really a contract. Any kind of contract thought is purely imaginary. It's purely imaginary that God actually has an obligation to give us something. And it's also imaginary that we have an obligation to act a certain way, to live the good life, and that somehow living that type of life, good. When I say the good life, I don't mean like living with wine and women and all that kind of good life in that sense. I mean the good life like in the way that Socrates might have said, the good life, meaning, be an honest person and being a righteous person and all that sort of thing. We have an obligation to kind of live that life. But that's all imaginary. It's imaginary. The contract between ourselves and God is purely imaginary. And the fact that our withholding forgiveness to God is our imaginary way of punishing God. The way I look at God is non-interfering. God doesn't interfere with our lives. God gave us everything we need, and that's it. There's no need for a contract. There's no need. You can live your life any way you want to. The only consequences are the natural consequences that happen from the decisions you make. If you go out there and kill somebody, you're going to get arrested. And you're going to face whatever punishments there are on this earth. God doesn't owe you protection. If you get falsely accused of a crime, God doesn't owe you the protection. It's not a mafia thing. God the mafioso, he's going to protect you. I'm going to give you protection. No, it doesn't work that way. Or save you from getting on an airplane that's about to crash. Oh, you were really good. You lived a really good life. I'm going to snatch you from that plane and make sure you get to the airport late so you miss that flight. No. I don't think it works that way. That's all imaginary. So I don't think there's a need to even think about forgiving God. Unless, of course, you really take this imaginary agreement serious. And that's basically all I have to say about that.